I've had a little opportunity to chat with a few of you, and I'm really impressed with all of your experiences and backgrounds, and energy. It's really great to have you here. So I'm going to give you like hopefully a 10 or 15 minute presentation on IDM. I've done this a whole bunch of times, so if I start to fall asleep while I'm doing it, throw something at me. And then we're going to bring up some students so you can actually verify the things I'm saying are true, okay? Because I have a credibility problem. And also they're a lot smarter than I am. So the program was started only about a year and a half ago. So right now, our first cohort, which we're calling the 2015 cohort, they're in their second year. And our brand new cohort arrived here, 6 or 8 weeks ago. And that's our second cohort ever. And they're in the middle of the throes of the core curriculum that we call ID Lab. And I'm going to tell you a lot about that and sort of present the structure. But this was the result of probably, 13 years of me kind of pitching the concept around MIT to various people. And prior to that, many years of kind of feelings, theories, philosophies about how our society is shaping up and what the role of design, engineering, and business is in that society, and also sustainability and compassion and love, and how all of those things can be integrated to make a real difference in the world. And especially when you're someone who maybe leaves a program like this with a brand like MIT, and you have those values and those ambitions and those visions, I really hope that it makes a big impact. So, so the beginning of my career, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to create products like this. And so I went to Rhode Island School of Design, and I studied industrial design, and I was very fortunate to be at RISD at its heyday. I mean, we had these iconic professors that they're just not around anymore, and I think I've done a really good job of kind of recreating that same philosophy and structure here. But, I'm not going to talk too much about these, but, like the Eames chair, designed by Ray and Charles Eames. And what I loved about it, was that it was beautiful and it was comfortable and it, had these beautiful materials. And then as I got a little more sophisticated, I realized, oh my God, Ray and Charles Eames actually created bent laminated wood manufacturing technology. They weren't just designers. They got their hands dirty in the manufacturing process, and they had to create this, this new kind of material that could be mass produced. And so I started getting appreciation for this kind of, to me, that was the integration of engineering and design. And, like Bang & Olufsen, they're creating products that, from a fidelity, audio fidelity perspective, they're kind of middle of the road. They're not really great high-end audio. But what they have is this beautiful kind of experience. There's some novel way of, inserting a disc or turning the volume up or skipping a track, and they're just very beautiful. And that experience, this was really great because that design and that experience differentiated them and gave them market share they would otherwise never have. And so you look at this industry of audio, right? And there's so many competitors. It's just a saturated market. What makes one business successful over another in markets like that? And it ends up that it's design. So here I was, in my 20s and 30s, I was like, my God, design has this incredible business value. And not many people really understand that. Not many managers understand that. Not many CEOs understand that. And we're just starting to now, but it's kind of in this superficial, primitive way, and there's a lot of talk about it. But here we're doing it in a very meaningful, purposeful way. I think we're the real deal. We are the real integrated kind of managers and potential CEOs in the world. This is a B&B Italia couch. It's a couch, right? You sit on it. It's got a back and a seat pan or a bottom. It's $20,000, and they get it. You know, you can get a couch for a lot less money than that. Why do they get it? Design has value. So these are products that I talk about for that reason. You know, and so, you know, here are more technological kind of products and some services, you know, and some experiences like Pixar. I mean, they took a technology like CAD and they turned it into something that could move us. You know, they could tell stories that make us cry or laugh and things like that. Otherwise, you know, CAD, you know, computer animated pictures, you know, they just didn't have a lot of value. But Steve Jobs with Pixar, they realized, just like with Apple products, there needed to be this emotional component that connects with us as consumers and as human beings. You know, Apple, Tesla, you know, what they did is they took a car. I mean, there's lots of electric cars out there, right? There's the Leaf, you know, there's the Volt, or now the Bolt, and then, you know, there's just all these electric cars out there. But what did Tesla do? They made the experience of owning that car very, very pleasurable, but they also added an element of pride, right? They took, like, when you buy that Ferrari or that Mercedes, and that kind of, you know, status and that kind of ability to express who you are and your value and sort of, you know, your cash muscles and your, you know, how sexy you are. Well, they did that with an electric car. And they're redefining, you know, the automotive industry because they integrated design, engineering, and business, not because they left one out. And then Airbnb, you know, this was, you know, it's a pretty good example of how design really gave them, you know, sort of the dominant market share in an industry. But I like to put them here because 2 of the 3 founders were my students. And, you know, they don't talk to me now, but, you know, they really kind of are big advocates for this type of kind of paradigm in learning and practicing. So, you know, all of these products are successful, and they all have in common that they have this wonderful user experience, they have profitable business models, and the technologies are exciting and robust and sound, and they're manufacturable and so forth. And that's a very difficult thing to achieve in a product. Not many products do. Matter of fact, you know, for every product you see on the market, there's probably, I'm not lying, probably a few hundred products that were attempted to be on that same shelf that never even made it to market. That's what entrepreneurs deal with all the time. Massive failure. Big dreams, big failure, but they don't give up and they do it again. Nobody writes about them, that entire 10-year process it takes to get that product on the shelf. And once they do, all of a sudden, Forbes is writing about them. And they never made a mistake in their life. So that's just not realistic. It's not the way things work. But here, we teach you to go through that process and be kind of emotionally robust throughout that process. So with that kind of ethos, you know, we created this program that combines business, design, and engineering. And so this Venn diagram, I need to change the colors, but, you know, we take design, business, and engineering. And why did we choose those? Well, design is responsible for desirability. Business is responsible for the viability, the profitability of a product, and then engineering, the feasibility of the product. And I show you this because IDM is right here, right in the center, okay? And the reason it's a heart is because we don't just do it kind of MIT style. You know, it's not an analytical kind of program. We have a lot of analytics. We do all of that stuff. But overlaid, we have a heavy dose of heart. We have a heavy dose of compassion. Everything really has to be in the context of what makes us better people and what makes our society better. How can we evolve our society with the work that we do and with the power that we have as MIT folks? So this is what we want to do. We want to create people with vision, and usually the people who get in have vision. People with passion, same thing. And people with love. And we actually screen for love. I'm not going to tell you how we do it, because then you could cheat. But we do put a very big emphasis on a person's compassion and capacity for love. And then what we do is we teach basically a bunch of skills and philosophies and processes and methods, and allow you to take courses in the engineering school and the business school to make you become very effective at what you want to do. We work with people from industry. This is Brian Matt, the CEO of Altitude, which is a very well-known and really high-quality product development firm in Somerville. And Brian has been really instrumental in, being a sounding board to me and to our faculty, and providing practitioners to come in and talk and tell us about real-world examples of a lot of the methods that we teach. And he's just a big fan of the program, and we have a beautiful relationship with them. And what's really interesting is, that was a year and a half ago that Brian kind of heard about the program before it even existed, and he was locked on, And now I think we have maybe half a dozen ID firms, very high caliber ID firms, product development firms that are just really have their eyes on this program and the people here, the graduates, and they're looking to suck them out of here for internships and stuff. So very happy about that. What we have here, we try to create this design innovation culture. Where you're sitting is the design studio. We've moved all the tables and the mess out, but before you got here, it was very messy, and all these projects were being built. And the design process. We have these extraordinary people, not just the faculty, but the students are what I think incredibly extraordinary people. And this is sort of what it looks like, if we're doing an X-hour talk, and I'll explain that in a minute. Currently, we have 2 cohorts, as I mentioned earlier. So we have now 39 people in the program. 8 weeks ago, we only had 18, actually 17, because one person did the 13-month and graduated. The average years of work experience are 5 across those 39 students. We have 19 men and 20 women. 12 countries are represented. And we have an exactly even distribution of designers, engineers, and managers or entrepreneurs. And I think that's also very unique, is that most programs like this, they don't hire they don't admit hardcore designers. And at MIT, that was a little bit of a trick, because a hardcore designer may not score a GMAT or a GRE test that your normal MIT student would for graduate studies here. So I make exceptions for that. Because there's different types of intelligences, and not all of them are tested for accurately with the current system we have in place. That was a battle that I won, and I'm really happy about that. As I mentioned, we sort of have these 2 options. The vast majority of students do the 2-year option. So this is the 2-year option right here. And that is that there's 2 academic years. You show up in August for orientation, and that's where we just spend some time together, get to know each other. We kind of introduce some small stresses, it could be a hike, or something like that, or a design challenge. And everyone starts working together and knowing each other as human beings, not as peers or as colleagues or anything like that. And then we start the fall semester, where we have we teach the core curriculum. That's 18 credits. And then you're expected to take a certain amount of electives in engineering and management in addition to that. Typically, you'll do about 12 units in one of those electives. And during that fall semester, we'll do 2 projects, Project 1 and Project 2. And I'll talk about those in a moment. And then we have a session here called IAP, and you're free. And the design of IAP at MIT was intended to give you the ability to explore outside of your discipline. So we kind of respected that design and gave it free. Made it so that you could do just that. You could explore and take something completely outside of the discipline. And then the spring semester, we do Project 3. The first 2 projects you can see are 5 weeks and 7 weeks. The third project is 14 weeks. So now you're going a lot deeper, but you've learned a lot of really good skills in the fall semester that you can use for that spring. We then help you try to find internship. I think, it was really funny with the first cohort this year. We worked really hard to find them internships. We were getting all these great opportunities, and nobody took them. They were like, nah, I don't like it. No, I don't like that. No, and then they all found their own that just sort of was just right for them, So, but we'll keep doing that. And then the second year, the core curriculum is now over. You won't even be here in this room. You'll be working on your thesis. And the thesis, we kind of hope, is a project that lasts the entire year. We kind of think of it this year as your incubator year, where you could create something and leverage the MIT community, all the mentoring, me, other faculty, and then as we get to know what your project is through our networks and our connections, come this sort of final review, this degree list, area right here, we'll populate the audience with potential business partners or investors. So we really want to be sort of a facilitator of a launch of a business. And a part of that project or business or whatever it is, you could target as your thesis, and you could write a thesis. The theses for this program, they don't have to be a full-blown thesis like you see, coming out of the, engineering school or material science, or something like that. They can be, a little more focused. They could be about design, or they could, whatever you want them to be. But the project plus this thesis qualifies as something that you can graduate with. The one-year option, you're doing all of that in 13 months. And you have no internship. You're going to do your thesis through the summer. And then in September, you'll turn it in. And if it's good, I sign it, and you graduate. Okay. Our curriculum, as I mentioned, we have ID Lab, which is the core curriculum. That's our name for the core curriculum. That's basically providing you design school. Okay. And so what does that mean? Well, most of it is about design process. And if you're familiar with design process, it can be applied to almost any problem in the world that you may face. And what is it? Well, it's basically exploring the problem in a way that gives you incredible depth and knowledge and emotional connection to that. And people use the word empathy. You understand that problem at a very nuanced level. And when you do that, the solutions tend to fall out very easily. When you don't do that, solutions tend to be, they're tough to come. And you don't recognize a solution when it might be the solution, because you really don't understand what the need is. So we really put a lot of time and effort into understanding problems. And then, most importantly, once you understand the problem, telling the story of that problem and expressing that problem. If you can't express the problem, you're not going to be able to build consensus. You're not going to be able to sell the problem to anyone. You're not going to be able to get financing to solve that problem. So that, or if you're in an organization, if you can't express the problem, you won't be able to lead a team to solve that problem. So that expression part is something that I think is often kind of glossed over by a lot of design thinking curriculums. And we put a lot of emphasis on that, is how to tell the story about this problem. And it puts you in a leadership position. If you own the problem, and the problem is usually a problem the customer has. If you own the customer, then you will be the leader of that particular product or business. So we put a lot of emphasis on that. And then we talk about integration, how these various disciplines talk to each other, how they work together, how to appreciate each other, what the disciplines bring to each other. And then hopefully by the end of the core, you're actually starting to do some of the work of other disciplines. So you might be a designer, but now you're doing cash flow projection, and maybe you're doing some testing, some functional testing, and you're a business person, and now maybe you're doing some sketching, and maybe you're suggesting some ergonomic models, that these are things you never would have done before. And if you think about it, when you leave and you are managing a team of designers as a manager, right, and they produce a bunch of ergonomic models that you don't think or maybe explore the problem well enough, you have now incredible depth in speaking about that, and you have credibility with those designers, and they will passionately do what you're asking them to do, as opposed to going through the motions and kind of saying, this person doesn't understand what we do, so whatever, I'm just going to throw it over the wall. So that's one of the objectives, is to really give you credibility, to make you the real deal. Electives, you're expected that you'll have to graduate with 27 units of management electives. You know, those will all be taken in Sloan School. And then 27 units of engineering units. And those will be from the engineering schools. There's, you know, several of them. And some of those units right now have to be, 15 of those have to be electives, and then 12 have to be foundations. And we have a list of which qualify for what, and it gets kind of complicated, but I just thought I'd throw that out there now. And then the thesis is 24 units, and you can take some of these units your second year as well. So you can spread everything out and have a decent pace. I think a lot of students, you know, they're like, oh my God, I'm at MIT. So they take every unit, they'll take extra classes just to get more learning and exposure to all the great stuff. Our typical day is this, okay? It starts at 11:30, and we have X hour. And basically what we do in X hour, that's sort of a grab bag. You know, we have people from industry coming in. We have the students giving presentations about themselves and what they aspire to be. We have, you know, I'll do exercises. I'll take apart products and explain how every part is made and how it was manufactured, and, you know, try to give great sensitivity to that process of making products, which is kind of tough. You know, we bring in thought leaders. We'll bring in, you know, people who deal with spousal abuse, and they'll talk about that because, you know, they're giving TED Talks. Or we'll bring in people who are, you know, created magazines, talk about that experience, you know. But really people who are independent thinkers that have created a new kind of perspective in the world. Those are the types of things we'll do in X hour. Lectures are not as kind of open. Those will be more about, you know, various very discrete processes and methods that you use to, you know, create businesses or products. And then that's 90 minutes. And these are some of the topics, you know, so we'll talk about intellectual property or product specifications or industrial design or engineering or, you know, environmental sustainability, all kinds of stuff like that. And then from 2:30 to 5 o'clock, it's studio time, and everyone works on their projects here, and faculty will go from each student and meet with them right at their desk and just sort of touch base, find out where they're at. At art school, you know, we call those desk crits. So we kind of do that. We go and sort of check in and see what they're doing and give suggestions or tell them, you know, things aren't looking so good. But usually it's just giving suggestions. And then from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, we have what's called workshop. And we have an instructor, Andy McGinnis, who teaches that. And Andy and I went to RISD together. And it's really interesting is Andy and I left RISD, and we both kind of followed different trajectories. I sort of became your kind of classic industrial designer with my own little practice. And Andy became sort of this uber prototyper. You know, he can make anything. And he started his own business in Boston called Monster Prototype. And then when I created the program, I was like, I think you'd be perfect to teach how to prototype to all the students. So that's what he does. And, you know, he does sessions on how to use hand tools, power tools, machine tools, 3D printing, CNC, you know, lathes, mills, manual lathes, manual mills. I mean, we really give you a real exposure to craft, to artisanship. So that, again, you get an appreciation for those who do that stuff, you know. You know, if you're on a factory floor and you see some person putting together your product, I want you to have an appreciation for what they do and the skill that they bring for such short money to them, you know. And the only way you're going to have that is if you've done it a little bit yourself and you appreciate what they do. So that's Mondays and Wednesdays. So it's a long day, but, you know, I think that's what it takes. And I actually think it's a really fun, great day. Yes?
So it starts at 11:30, which I think is kind of late. So what happens before 11:30?
I'm sleeping.
Oh,
Yeah.
You guys, maybe you probably like work after workshop till like midnight?
After workshop, I'm sleeping there too. Yeah. Yeah. But we have a suggestion box. You can put that in there, and we'll consider that for next year. This little diagram of ID Lab, and I don't even know why I have this in here. I think I just sort of explained all this with the last slide. But it's sort of a graphic. This is ID Lab, this space, and what's going on. These are the activities that it acts as your team headquarters, your maker space, design workshops, guest lecturers. We do user-centered design and research, obviously, and then faculty lectures. It all kind of happens right here. This year we started using a classroom in D-Lab, thank God, where we can do lectures in an environment that's quiet and the projector is brighter and good stuff like that. So that's really been wonderful. The projects. So you get all this curriculum, but really the meat of the learning happens in the projects, the practice of these theories, right? And so in the spring semester, this projects will be student-generated and or industry-sponsored. So we have a lot of companies that are interested in working with us, and they'll pose an opportunity or a problem to the students. And if enough students are interested in working on that, it will become a project. So last year we had Sonos, Disney, and Camper Shoes from Mallorca, Spain. And those were very wonderful companies to work with, and I think they were very fruitful projects, and they satisfied the need of teaching the process, but also gave sort of this added dimension of reality and resources and interaction with people who are in the trenches day in and day out. So those were really great. And then a lot of the student-generated projects were terrific as well. And the projects can be products, tangible products, three-dimensional products, but they can also be services. They could be a financial instrument, they could be like a microfinancing instrument, or they could be, it could be a digital product. It could be a user experience, I don't care what it is. It could be a play. I don't care. It's a product. It's an experience. You have to design it. And then you have to work out the business and the engineering of that, So really anything goes. And I'm particularly passionate about solving societal problems and really want to encourage as much of that as possible. My private little dream, which won't be private after I say this now, is that, someday the president of this country and every member of Congress has an understanding of design process. And I think at that point, we might actually have some solutions that come our way. And I hope that students here are those people. Yeah, cha-cha. So this is just a little blurb on our sponsors. We kind of require that they have an intimate relationship with us. It's not just a superficial kind of transaction with us. We really want them to be engaged with the students, to support the students. We kind of suggest that they fly the students to their headquarters to meet with them and experience what it is to be there. The intellectual property, so whatever you invent on behalf of these sponsors, you own as students here. And what you do have to do, though, is offer it to the sponsor if they want to buy it. And if they don't negotiate successfully with you, that's too bad, you keep it. But most likely they'll be successful because you'll want the money. So admissions, so one of the unique things is everyone's expected to submit a portfolio no matter what your background is. So if you're in management, you're going to have to put together a portfolio. And I'm not talking about a stock portfolio. You're all going to have, to submit some recommendations. We ask the recommenders some very specific questions. So we don't want them to prepare a recommendation that they've sent out to 5 other schools. We really like them to answer our questions because they're weird questions and we like weird answers. And then you're going to write a statement of objectives. With those things, we kind of score you on various attributes that I think I've mentioned pretty clearly here. And if we feel confident that this is the right fit, then we set up an interview, and that can be in person or by Skype, and that's sort of how it goes, and then you get a decision. The admissions deadlines this year, we have 2 deadlines. One's January 20th, okay, in 2017, and we have a second one March 10th. So you might be wondering why there's 2. If you apply in January for the first deadline, what you do is you kind of get an advantage, because we're going to just fill the cohort as quickly as we can, with qualified applicants. And so what happened this year is that the cohort filled up pretty quickly in the first deadline, and then the second deadline, it was like, oh geez, all these other great applicants applied, and we just didn't have a lot of room. So I would encourage everyone to apply early if you're planning to do that. Okay, so this is this year's cohort. They're not very pretty, but I like them. And that's the mission for IDM, to enable the learning and development of extraordinary, innovative leaders that will bring new levels of creativity, vision, and integrity to business and society. Doesn't really talk about product. And, it's sort of this message that I really, yeah. So, if I were to sort of say that is IDM, I think that MIT would get confused about us. But that really is IDM right there. So if you have any questions for me, I'd love to hear them. We're also going to bring up some student panelists. Who's coming? Why don't you guys come on up? Actually, we'll all take questions from you all at once, but I'll take yours right now.
So
Ari.
I was curious about the final project and thesis.
Yeah.
I know the program's pretty young, but have you had people collaborate on a final project or thesis?
So yes. So the intent is, that's a great question. Thank you. So we do expect those projects that final year to be collaborations. And they don't have to be collaborations just with IDM students. You could collaborate with a team that comes out of Sloan. And you could be the designer on that team, or maybe you're the manager on a team that's in engineering, or maybe you go to Martin Trust Center and there's some, they've already got, everybody, but you have a contribution to make. So you could be on that team as well. So it could be really anything. Yep. All right. So I'll introduce you to, this is Pushpa, Guillaume, Atya, and Matt. And Matt is from the first cohort, so he's in his second year, and that's why he looks kind of, really unhappy, and yeah.
Because I only have a few months left.
Oh, nice. And these guys are all fresh because they're still on the upward trajectory. No. All right. So, any questions for these guys? But I will bring that mic around if you want.
So the way that we were thinking we would do it is just introduce ourselves, so that you know a little bit more about the students specifically, and then if you want to just shout out questions, I'll just repeat them into the mic, so that the people that are going to watch this as a recording later hear them, and then we can kind of go our own way of answering them for you. So, would you like to start?
So as Matt said, my name's Atya, and my background is that I grew up in Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan for undergrad and studied business. After school, I went to San Francisco, where I was a consultant for a couple years, and then moved into the startup world, where I was doing analytics. Went to another startup in Denver, where I was doing product management, and then in Denver, I started applying to schools and found IDM and knew that this was the place I wanted to be, specifically because no other program so effectively combines the three disciplines and really allows for cross collaboration, for working with people from the different disciplines, and really giving you a taste of, for me, my background's in business, so a taste of engineering and design. And I just have to say that Matt and his team has done a great job selecting the people. So I know, like, I'm already learning so much from the people around me as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Pushpa. I'm from Singapore. I did my undergrad in electrical engineering from NUS, which is National University of Singapore.
Louder.
Oh, louder, okay.
Yeah, because this is not amplifying.
Oh.
This is just this is just for Eric over there. So he can record
Okay.
it. So you got to talk to Maya.
I see. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, great. So I'll repeat myself again. So my name is Pushpa. I'm from Singapore. I did my undergrad in National University of Singapore. My background is electrical engineering. I did 3 years of engineering work in Qualcomm, and I'm here. So I have absolutely no design background. So if you're like wondering, do I have to have a bit of design background to come into this program? No. So since Matt chose me, I think.
Wait a
guess
minute, I
you-
didn't know that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, if you want to step out of your comfort zone and learn new things, I think this is the best program.
Hi everyone, my name is Guillaume. I'm French. I'm from Paris, and my background is in business. I did a master's in management in HEC Paris. I worked for 2 years setting up an education structure for French students, and then I worked for a year in corporate finance, and then 2 months in a startup incubator this summer. And I think Atiya and Pushpa pretty much summed it up. The reasons why I wanted to join IDM is because I wanted to learn more about product development, product design, and also I think our cohort has such an amazing diversity that it makes your learning experience so much richer. And yeah.
And then again, my name is Matt, Matt Tucker. There's been a lot of confusion between having two Matts in the group. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for my undergrad and actually studied international studies. I kind of expected to go abroad and do a lot of international development work, and for different reasons ended up not doing that. I did a minor in sustainability and got involved with a sustainability startup in Chapel Hill right after graduation, and while doing that, kind of realized I had this passion for new product development, and so that kind of set me on a different path where I did new product development with another startup for a little while, and then moved up here to work with the Harvard Business School Digital Initiative to help that get started, and worked on crowdsourcing and platform strategy over there, and kind of thinking about the digital transformation of society. So a friend of mine over there connected me with Matt, and it was funny, I had told some friends upon moving here that even though I was in this world of really great, amazing academic institutions and working for one, I didn't see myself going to one. And that was until I talked to Matt and heard his vision for what IDM is and could be. And that is really creating bringing together this amazing group of people and seeing the way that they could work together, but also thinking about changing the way that the world works. And one of the things he values most, and I think that we all need to value, is rewriting the rules a little bit. I think we're all kind of in a place where the rules aren't working for a lot of people, and we have the power through design and through integrated design to change the rules a little bit and make the world a better place for everybody. And so that was what brought me here, and that's what my aim is going forward. So with that, we would love to hear other questions. We're happy to share those, so just shout them out.
What types of things do you guys specifically see yourself doing after this program?
So the question was, what types of things do we see ourselves doing after the program specifically? Who wants to take that first? This is maybe a little bit unfair because they just started. So unless someone wants to shout out, I will give an attempt. So that's actually an interesting thing that we were just talking about this week. It's something that I think we all have this ambition, like I said, to change things and to create new things. We were just talking about that the other day. What is that thing that we go do? I think the common thread that runs through everybody in the program, all 39 people so far, and the thing that I think really defines what makes you a good fit for this program is being focused on creating new ventures. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're focused on creating a new product or creating a new service. It can be any of those things. And it doesn't necessarily have to be purely entrepreneurial. I think there are a lot of us that are excited about the companies that exist right now and how, and the new opportunities that they can seize. And we just see ourselves as building new ventures, whether that's internal at a existing company or external in an entrepreneurship scenario.
And just to follow up on that, for me specifically, I'm really interested right after school in design consulting. I think that the space is really interesting where you're working, again, cross-functionally and solving problems, but that's only temporarily. I want to learn what they're doing well, what can be done better, and then, as Matt was saying, start my own thing.
So like just say like in the program you created a product and you want to do like a low volume run of it, is there a support network to help students create small runs of like products?
So the question is whether if you've created a product and you want to do a small run of it, whether there's a good support network here at MIT and with IDM specifically. I guess I feel like I'm going to hog this, but we have, there's a really, really great network of labs, fab labs in different spaces around campus maker spaces that give you a pretty great option in terms of being able to do small runs of the thing that you've made. And in fact, in the second project that you do in the first semester, you will do a small run of the product that you've created, that you've designed.
Like how small?
So you have, is it still the same?
Yeah, 50.
Okay. You have to make 50 units of what you've designed by the end of the first semester.
If I was like interested in creating like maybe 200 to 500 of something, do you have relationships with contract manufacturers and can you teach students about that side?
Let's let Matt have the mic
Yeah,
there.
Yeah. No, I have a mic. Thank you. It's right here. See, right there. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so manufacturing is a big part of my professional life. I started out designing products, and I had a propensity for engineering or mechanical stuff. So I started then adding engineering to my practice, and then started hiring people to help me with that, and hired designers to help me do design work. And then my clients would say, okay, this is great, but I need 10,000 units. And very early on in my career, I had created a few startups, one of which was manufacturing products in China. So I reestablished those connections in China, and to this day, I still manufacture in China. And manufacturing is something that I really love. I'm very familiar with it. I am the person on the factory floor helping them redesign, how that factory line is set up and what tasks are done at what stations and how to write the instructions for the people at those stations and things like that. Yeah, and then, that's sort of at high volume, and then there's medium volume, so we do, a lot of work there as well. And then, like Matt said, we do this small volume 50 unit run. 200 would be perfectly acceptable. I mean, one team, in doing that project, they started kind of forecasting how many people want to buy their product. And this was a great kind of surprise to me, is that now marketing and forecasting was being incorporated into this experience of this design project that I didn't anticipate. And so they made 80 units and sold them all. Yeah. And we have this sort of sales gala event in December, which is coming up. December 15th, yes.
Any other questions at the moment?
Just for the few business people up here, just a little bit more practical efficiency questions, but from the portfolio perspective, you know, not having a design background, not probably having prepared a portfolio before, I come from a business background. How'd you go about doing that and like, presenting your work?
So,
All right, hold on one second. So the question is, if for business people that are applying, gotcha. For the business people that are applying, how do you go about creating a portfolio that is showing your work when you know that you're going up against designers that are doing the same thing?
yeah, that definitely stressed me out initially. I was really worried about that component, but don't worry. For me, I specifically called out different projects that I had a lot of impact on and went through my process of working on those projects, specifically understanding the problem and going through like the different teams I worked with and what the outcome was. And so I think you can make it more quantitative and more aligned with the work that you've done. And I just presented it as a PowerPoint presentation to go through the story of that.
Yeah, I pretty much did the same. Just maybe don't worry about the fact that what you did wasn't what you think is design, because maybe it is. And just lay out what projects you loved the most. Lay them out in an explanatory way, and yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, and I'll just add that if you're not a designer, you're not expected to create a portfolio that's gorgeous. You know, design is not always about styling. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest themes to this whole program. Design is about process. It's about thinking. It's about connecting with the problem and solving for what you've, connected to. And if you can tell that story, that's all you have to do. Just don't make me read a lot. Okay.
One of the things you learn here is to think visually. And so the sooner you can practice that, the better. Anybody else? Sorry, could you repeat the end of that?
Yeah. How do you feel like your work experience is giving you a different lens in coming back to education as opposed to just straight out academia?
Right. So the question is how our work experience, as you might have seen, that's the average work experience between graduation and enrolling in IDM is about 5 years of work experience, and how that's given us a different lens rather than just applying directly after graduation.
With work experience, I think you know how to people manage, and then learn about processes, which is very important in design thinking. So that's one thing. And then you get to work on things or create stuff which has an impact to the company or even people. So that's something that you will learn, and maybe even pick up certain skills that you might require here. So always having a work experience would make you more matured, I would feel, because you know how it is. Like being in school is different from working. So it's not only about doing work and then just doing the project just for that particular course, but in work you're going to do things which is going to be used by other people, so you have to make it more user-centric. So that's one thing that you will learn at work, so that will come in really handy when you're going to be here.
Maybe I didn't understand the question right, but I think mostly your work experience, or at least for me, helped me realize how badly I wanted to get in here and how badly I wanted to learn new things. So it was more a frustration experience than a work experience, which I think made me more eager to learn new things and open my mind to a lot of new disciplines.
I would agree completely with what Guillaume and Pushpa said, and then just to add a little bit onto that, I think it gives you a sense, you have a little bit more time to develop who you are when you're working, and you come in and appreciate the education you're getting and appreciate the diversity of the people around you and what they have to offer. So you're just soaking everything up as much as you can.
I would add two things quickly. One, to build on Pushpa, is that the reality in the working world is that everything happens as part of a team. You know, your undergraduate experience, you know, you kind of dread those group projects because you don't know who's actually going to pull their weight, and you know how much of it is going to land on you. That just can't happen in the working world. It doesn't work that way. So you've learned how to work with other people and how to be on a team together, and that's really, really key to this program. And you know, these guys have just started, but you'll see so soon how not just your own team, but all the people that on the other teams are giving you feedback and helping you think through these problems. So that's a really big, important thing. And then I think to the frustration point, IDM, the vision that Matt has about what the role of design is in business and society going forward is just now being kind of recognized. The need for it is now being recognized and slowly being defined. And so back to your question about what do you do after this? I think we're at the cutting edge of the people, the kind of people that have this combination of disciplinary, like the three disciplines together. That's not something that's very, very common yet, but it will be, and it will have to be in order for businesses to succeed, and for just programs, whether they're nonprofit, for-profit, or government, they'll need that kind of integration to succeed. And I think the exciting thing about coming to IDM is you get to be on the cutting edge of that. You're some of the first qualified with an MIT degree people that can do that kind of thing that business needs right now. I saw another question.
Yeah, this is actually a question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
You have been in this program for 2 years. What kind of advice would you give the 3 freshmen?
Ooh, I didn't think of you guys as freshmen. So the question is what advice I would give to the new students as a second year. So I come from a little bit of a different perspective. I'm pretty sure I was the only student last year that worked full time while doing the program, which was maybe not the best decision in retrospect. It was a really long year, but it gave me a really cool opportunity to learn what I was learning here and then apply it in the business context. But after doing that for a year and just coming to a natural stopping point, but also realizing like MIT has an enormous number of resources, and the thing about this group and the way that this program works is you can find your passion, your thing, and people that are doing that and can teach you so much more about that thing that you're passionate about anywhere else in the school. And I think we really, we talk about the integration of business design and engineering like in this context, but I think one of the things that every single student is passionate about is the integration with other parts of the school, and that's parts of the school that are really focused on the thing that you're excited about. And that could be with CSAIL, that could be with the Martin Trust Center and working on entrepreneurship, that could be machine learning, it could be things at the Media Lab. Anyway, there's just, I could go all night kind of listing different places and organizations and groups that are doing incredible cutting edge work that need this kind of sensibility. And I think the sooner you take advantage of that, the better, and get involved and let them know the value that you can bring. That's a really important thing for us to do, is to kind of build those bridges and integrate IDM with the rest of the university.
Building off of what you mentioned earlier when you said you worked and also did your first year at IDM, in terms of like financing your education, are there opportunities for paid internships or TAing or anything like that?
So the question is about financing the program, looking for paid internships and TAs and RAs and things like that. Have any of you done that yet? Okay, again, I'm a TA this semester and anticipate being a TA the whole year. One of the things about that is typically to be a TA, you will have had to take the class and get an A in it for the professor to consider you. It is relatively competitive. But so that's an option definitely for your second year, and if you kind of are really proactive about it and thinking, and have a great background that can be really additive to a particular class, then by all means don't let the status quo way of going about things deter you from looking at that. There are RA positions, research associate positions, are also an option that often won't cover the full thing, but will get you a good portion of the tuition covered, which helps, and sometimes a stipend as well. So that makes a big difference. And there are also paid internships and things like that you can find around campus. There are a lot of different options. I would suggest looking at fellowships really early on. I didn't look at that stuff early enough, but there's a lot there, a lot of resources.
Let me just also add that, so what I've witnessed is that first semester is sort of a semester where students sort of self-finance, and then they use that time to find opportunity here. And usually by the second semester, those that really need a position usually have one. It's very encouraging for me. In art school, no such thing, And here, you can make that happen.
So another one over here, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to ask, this is kind of like a strange question, but I actually don't know what a fellowship is. So what is a fellowship?
What is a fellowship? That is a good question. It means different things in different places. It can be anything from the Legatum Center, for example, is a center for basically developing world entrepreneurship, and they do fellowships. You can apply, I think by early spring, and you can get a fellowship that will cover tuition for the year plus give you a stipend to work if you have a developing world business that you're trying to run, trying to start, and you have, I think their requirements are you already have a prototype, you've already kind of piloted, and you're starting to think about scaling. So that's one example, but there are a bunch of different things. Some of them have no specific MIT connection there, but there are sites that MIT uses to collect a bunch of different opportunities for that. So.
Okay.
Final call?
Yeah.
Anybody?
All right. Well, I hope we gave you an accurate picture of IDM and answered all your questions. We're going to be here for another hour or so. Is that right, Les?
Yes.
Okay. And so we can drink and eat and chit-chat. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.